All right, this is my third and hopefully last Karcher pressure washer repair video. Now, I've got the switch and everything sorted out on this. You can check out some other videos. I'll put them in the links in the description if you are having problems with it turning on and off. But right now I'm having difficulties with getting the air out of the system. So no matter what I do, the air just seems to sort of come back and it'll start kicking out air bubbles. So it leads to low pressure. Right now it looks okay. Obviously it's running, turn it on and off a few times. And I let it run for quite a while and I still get quite a bit of air in the system. And it obviously creates issues when you're using the pressure washer and it gets, sort of pressure fluctuations. You can see it's going crazy right there with air bubbles. And that shouldn't be happening, obviously. Now, I do have some issues with this wand as well. So it might actually work almost normal right now, but because the nozzle of the wand needs cleaning, I do take that apart off camera. I don't even bother with a video on that. But once I stripped all the plastic housing off this thing and brought it outside, you can see it is leaking. So I turn it on and off, which you probably shouldn't have it plugged in when you have it stripped down like this, but I do anyway, obviously dedicated to YouTube videos. But you can see there's a crack in the housing right there where my finger is, and you can see when I turn off the pressure washer, water starts flowing out of that crack, which is not ideal. And then when I turn it on, you can see it sort of gurgling out there. And when I turn it on, the water gets sucked back in. So it's obviously pulling in air there when the pressure washer's on and obviously pushing water out and leaking when the pressure washer is turned off. So like I said, I already took it out of the plastic housing. Your housing might be different than mine anyway, but suffice it to say it takes a whole bunch of torque screws and then eventually you'll be able to pull the whole thing out. Now, again, you might have a slightly different configuration. There's a lot of different Karcher models now. There's a few retaining clips that you need to remove. Mine were semi-rusted in there. One was okay, the other one was pretty rusty. And then there's other parts that are just a press fit and held in that way and have like a rubber O-ring. Now the part that I'm trying to get to, I believe it's called the control head and pressure manifold, and the new cost on these things I think is about $100 for both parts. Maybe you can get one part a little bit cheaper. And to get down to it, there's just 4 bolts that are holding everything down, so I gotta take those off. And there's some springs that push up, so it doesn't come up straight, it comes up on a bit of an angle. So I just take one bolt off a little bit, take another one off, as opposed to just pulling one bolt completely out. So I just sort of work around, just like when you're putting a car tire on a vehicle. You don't just crank one bolt all the way down or one lug nut all the way down in the case of a car tire. But once you pop that metal piece off, you pretty much have access to it. So I'll just take off some of the additional hosing, and then this is sort of a 2-piece system. Some things come apart, so just try not to drop things. So obviously there's that one little crack in the plastic that's a problem. But as soon as I pop this thing open, I noticed that there's actually an O-ring that's broken. So my initial thought was that the broken O-ring might actually be the problem. I don't know, it's not really an O-ring, it's more of a triangle. But anyway, you get the point. There is a broken gasket in here. So my initial thought was, okay, maybe that is the problem, and maybe I didn't see a crack in the plastic. Maybe what I saw was just a leak from that gasket that was, near that thing that looked like a crack in the plastic. So I actually went on Amazon, links in the description as always, and I was able to get that gasket fairly cheap, actually. So I actually got a bag with a whole bunch of them in there, and I already had this Hayward's O-ring lubricant, so I'm going to use that. It's for pools, so it'll be fine in this application, I'm sure. But like I said, I did get a bag of these things because I couldn't buy them individually. So I have a lifetime supply, but I got them from the Lord of the Gasket or something. Anyway, like I said, links in the description, and they just fit on there just like that. So shipped in 2 days, absolutely great. I was very surprised I was able to get them. Like I said, to get the top end of this unit, it looked like about $100, which I wasn't really down with because this thing's sort of junky. So now everywhere that has an O-ring, I'm just lubing it up and then reassembling everything. So pretty straightforward. Like I said, anywhere I could find an O-ring, I just pop it out, lube it, put it back in, and ideally that'll help prevent air leaks and that sort of thing, and make sure that it's running well. And obviously the big one, the important one, is this big triangle. And you can see there's some springs in there. Obviously, if you tip that thing upside down, everything will fall out. So just be careful if you're doing that, so as not to dump all the parts out of it. Anyway, lube it up, put that O-ring on, and then lube it up again. Make it nice and greasy, and that'll obviously help keep water and air from coming in and out of the system. And then just squish everything back together. And in the spirit of lubing up everything, I just take that lubricant and I look for anything that looks like it's a rubber piece or that looks like it moves or could use some lubing up. And then I reassemble everything, and it is, I don't know, it's a little bit difficult to get everything together, and it's mainly because inside of the pump motor there's those springs, so everything doesn't necessarily sit flat. It always tries to push up on one of the corners. Like I mentioned, just like when you're putting on a car tire, don't just take one of these bolts and crank it all the way down. I just go around the square and tighten each bolt a little bit, working things down and taking my time. Overall, stripping your Karcher pressure washer isn't actually that hard. It's just sort of time consuming, which is the most annoying part of everything. You want it to go fast, but it's just not the case. It's just, there's a lot of screws and a lot of bolts, and they really don't want you opening these Karcher pressure washers. That's what I have determined in this process. But anyway, the assembly of this thing is the exact opposite of the disassembly, obviously. Like I said, it's not too hard, it's just a bit of a pain. Now, with everything reassembled, I take it back outside, and sure enough, it is leaking again. So just doing that gasket wasn't enough, and I take it back inside for round 2 with this thing. And now this time I had some fiberglass in the basement, so I just cut some really small strips. Obviously, I got in there and dried it up. I don't take it apart again to fix this plastic piece. I just took some Windex to make sure that all the O-ring lubricant that I used was off the Karcher pressure washer unit, and then I took this little piece of sandpaper and some epoxy, and I'm going to epoxy this crack up, and I'm going to use fiberglass on it as well. And the first thing I'm going to do is take that sandpaper and just scuff the plastic a little bit where I'm going to apply the epoxy. And then I just use, I don't know what this thing is. It looks like a tongue depressor. I was looking for popsicle sticks. I just found some random stuff in my house. I didn't buy anything. I just take that and I spread the epoxy pretty liberally on the Karcher unit. I think I could still disassemble this thing without any issue. Obviously, if you had a crack somewhere else, you might actually have to take everything apart and epoxy up the crack. So you can't really see in there, so I just epoxied it. I put a piece of fiberglass or 2 on top of the epoxy, pressed it down, and then let it dry. And then once it was dry, I came back and put a little bit more epoxy in the system. Now, it's a rainy day, so I'm not going to film too much, but suffice it to say, after about an hour of letting the epoxy set up, I took it outside and tested it out, and now it's good to go. So that broken gasket is fixed, and the cracked manifold head unit thing is also sorted out. And honestly, if you have an old one and you just want to keep it running, I would definitely go with this epoxy fiberglass combination and just seal up that head unit. So you can see way more power when I turn this on now. I don't really recommend having your pressure washer disassembled like this and plugging it in. I'm just doing it to test it, and 100% I'm not advising you to do that. But anyway, there it is. I've got everything back in the plastic, and you see that now when I turn it on, it springs back to life, and I'm not getting all of those air bubbles in the system, losing that pressure. And obviously, when I reassembled it, it was still raining outside. So after waiting a few days and getting a sunny day, I obviously want to show the pressure washer actually finally working as it should. And you can see it's working properly now. The switch is good to go. There's no leaks. Everything is pretty good. I think I still could use a new handle, like a new gun on this thing. And as mentioned, I did also strip the gun apart and clean up the nozzle with some WD-40 and just some sewing needles, and just made sure that the hole was 100% free and clear. I think there was probably some rust in there, and that was also messing up the spray pattern. But anyway, I do like the electric pressure washer more than my gas powered pressure washer because it's not ridiculously overpowered. I find that my gas powered one either has way too much power, or if you put on the weak nozzle, it's just not strong enough. So this, I find, is a happy medium. It's not so powerful that it's going to rip paint off everything that you use it on, and it's not so weak that it's basically just like using your garden hose. Ultimately, I don't know that I would buy a Karcher pressure washer again. This thing's been a pain, but 100% they are repairable, despite the fact that they are kind of painful to take apart. Anyway, hopefully this helps you fix your Karcher pressure washer. Thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.